3.
I'll now call the meeting to order, and the recording has started, I believe. Good evening, members of the committee, applicants, agents, staff, and members of the public. I will now call the Committee of Adjustment for October 21st, 2021 to order. As this meeting is being held electronically due to the COVID-19 pandemic, I will go over some ground rules of procedure for the benefit of members and the viewing public. This meeting is being recorded and streamed live via the County of Brant YouTube account. To all of those attending the meeting, please ensure your camera is off and your microphone is on mute throughout the meeting when you are not speaking. I would ask that Randy Fitch and Mary Elder shut off their cameras. When it is appropriate to speak, please remember to unmute your microphone and turn on your camera if operational before speaking. I would ask that if possible, Committee of Adjustment members use their cameras throughout the meeting so that applicants, agents, and members of the public know who the members are. Staff will be requested to join the meeting during presentations and will be available to answer questions. Movers and seconders of each motion will be identified by the committee members and a recorded vote captured by a yes or no by each committee member. Applicants, agents, owners, and delegations are participating via Zoom or telephone accordingly. All persons wishing to speak to the items on the agenda were required to register prior to the meeting. Any delegations received in written format have been provided to the members of the committee and will form part of the meeting record. Those presenting as delegations will have 10 minutes to speak to the application at hand, not past applications or associated applications. Staff will have a timer for 10 minutes and will give the delegation a 2-minute warning. If the delegation presentations are not focused on the application at hand, the chair will ask the delegations to focus their presentations. In the event a connection service interruption occurs that affects quorum of Committee of Adjustment, we may recess the meeting for up to 15 minutes to regain quorum. If quorum is not achieved, the meeting is adjourned. I will now introduce Amanda Wisniewski to provide the following comments.
Thanks, MJ. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to tonight's Committee of Adjustment meeting. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, rather than a traditional meeting in the council chambers, this virtual meeting will act as the statutory meeting for the Committee of Adjustment planning applications. The purpose of this Committee of Adjustment meeting is to give consideration to minor variances and consent applications. Public notices were mailed and signs posted by staff as required by the Planning Act. A copy of the meeting agenda, including the staff report, related materials, and comments received have been posted on the County of Brant website. This evening, the committee will hear from planning staff who will share an overview of the planning application and provide the recommendation. The committee will then hear from the agent and/or applicants and any of the members of the public who've registered to speak this evening. Following each presentation, the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions of clarification. Once the presentations, public hearing, and question period are complete for each item, if the committee deems it appropriate, they will make a decision. The names of those individuals who speak on any item tonight will appear on the meeting minutes. Anyone wishing further notice of any hearing, including a copy of the committee's decision, please contact the Secretary Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. Minor variance decisions are final if there are no appeals within 20 days after the committee's decision, and consent decisions are final if there are no appeals within 20 days after the notice of decision has been issued. Representing planning staff this evening includes myself, Amanda Wisniewski, Shannon LaBelle, Dan Nemizniak, Ryan Cummins, and Alyssa Seitz.
Thank you, Amanda. I will now call each member in order. Please indicate by stating present if you are in attendance. Mary Jane Brown, present. Harry Emmett.
Present.
Bob Hamilton.
Present.
Daniel Zuloff.
Present.
Rebecca Smith,
Present.
Steve Schmidt,
Present.
John Vamus.
Present.
Thank you, members. We will now move to item 2, approval of agenda. Do any members have any items to be added to the agenda? I will now turn it over to Member Hamilton for the motion.
Moved by myself, seconded by Member Schmidt, that the agenda for the County of Brant Committee of Adjustment meeting for October 21 be approved.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett. Member Emmett, your mic is muted.
There's a storm going through and it keeps cutting out on me.
Oh, okay, sorry. Are you in favor of the motion?
Yep.
Thank
Yes.
you. Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus, Member Vamus. Maybe we have
Yes,
lost.
sorry, I promised my mute button. Yeah, yes.
Thank you. Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
and Member Brown, yes. Thank you, members. We will now move to item 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Are there any members who would like to declare a conflict of interest for any items on the agenda this evening? If yes, please indicate by stating your name and application number.
Yes, Member Vamus for application A23-21-SL.
Thank you, Member Vamus. When that application is heard, I will request that you set aside. We will now move to item 4, adoption of minutes from the previous meeting. Do the committee members have any errors or omissions to note? It appears there are none, so I will turn it over to Member Vamus for the motion.
Yes, moved by myself and second by Member Smith that the minutes from the County of Brant Committee of Adjustments meeting of September 16th, 2021 be approved.
Thank you, Member Vamus. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
and Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The minutes from the previous meeting have been adopted. We will now move on to the public hearings, and I will now introduce item 6.1, application SV421SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you. Good evening, Committee of Adjustment and members of the public. This is a sign variance for lands located at 1070 Rest Acres Road, Building A-3 within the former town of Paris. The sign variance is for relief of the number of signs permitted and for relief of the maximum area per sign face. A total of 3 fascia signs are being requested, whereas the sign bylaw permits a maximum of 2 fascia signs on the premises within a commercial zone. A total of 2 signs are being requested to be placed on a wall face area less than 100 square meters, whereas the sign bylaw permits a maximum of 1 sign on a wall face area less than 100 square meters. The subject lands are located on the north side of future Arlington Parkway along the west side of Rest Acres Road. These lands are directly surrounded by commercial and residential uses to the north, residential uses to the east, south, and west of the property. The proposal does not have any impact on conformity and/or consistency with regards to current provincial policies and documents in place, as it strictly pertains to signage on the site. The subject lands are designated as shopping center commercial within the County of Brant official plan. The proposed sign variants are consistent with the overall commercial development at 1070 Rest Acres Road, thereby in conformity with the County of Brant official plan. These subject lands are zoned as special exception general commercial, C3-1, within the County of Brant zoning bylaw. The C3 zone permits a range of commercial uses. Under the C3 zone, a restaurant is a permitted use. The proposed sign variance for the fascia sign is in conformity with the multi-tenant commercial development approved on these lands. The applicant is requesting a relief from section G1, number permitted, and section G3, maximum area per sign face, of the County of Brant sign bylaw in order to permit a total of 3 fascia signs, whereas only 2 are permitted, and to permit a total of 2 signs on a wall face area less than 100 square meters. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the County of Brant sign bylaw 121-08, as all other provisions are being met. No public comments were received for this application. Staff are supportive of the sign variance application as it is in keeping with the overall intent of the sign bylaw. The request is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands, and the request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. Staff is recommending approval of the sign variance application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff? It appears at this point there are no questions or comments by the committee. I will now ask, is the agent or applicant present to make a presentation or add any details of this of their request? I would ask Alyssa, is the applicant or agent for this application present?
Through the chair, no, it is Shannon that is representing them tonight.
Okay. Are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application?
Through the chair, no, there is not.
Thank you. Are there any final questions or comments to staff from the committee? It appears there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Zuloff to move the motion on this item.
Oh, sounds like a casino. Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that application SB421SL be approved as outlined in staff report CA 2173.
Thank you, Member Zuloff. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Member Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
yes,
Schmidt,
yes,
and Brown, yes. The motion has been approved. The application has been approved, and we will now move on to item 6.2 on our agenda. Item 6.2, application SB21SL, and I will turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you. This is a sign variance for lands located at 340 Bishopsgate Road within the former township of Brantford. The sign variance is for relief of section H sign face area in order to permit LED messaging as the electronic messaging portion of the sign, whereas the sign bylaw only stipulates for electronic messaging, which does not include LED. The subject lands are located on the east side of Bishopsgate Road, south of the Colborne Street East and Bishopsgate Road intersection. To the north, south, and east of the subject property are lands designated for employment, but are currently being used for agriculture. To the west are lands designated for agriculture and are being used for agriculture. The proposal does not have any impact on conformity and/or consistency with regards to current provincial policies and documents in place, as it strictly pertains to signage on the site. The subject lands are identified as Site-Specific Policy Area 20, are designated employment, and are located within the secondary urban settlement area boundary within the County of Brant official plan. The proposed sign variance is consistent with the existing recreational land use in the form of an indoor range, which was reviewed and approved on the subject lands as per the rezoning application ZBA 4711, thereby in conformity with the County of Brant official plan. The subject lands are zoned as special exception light industrial M2-12 within the County of Brant zoning bylaw. This permits an archery and shooting club in addition to the uses permitted in the M2 zone. The site-specific zoning of the subject lands permits the indoor range. The proposed sign variance for the ground sign is in conformity with the development approved on these lands. The applicant is requesting relief from section H-4 sign face area of the County of Brant sign bylaw in order to permit LED messaging, whereas the sign bylaw only stipulates for electronic messaging. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the County of Brant sign bylaw as all of the provisions are being met. No public comments were received for this application. Staff are supportive of the sign variance application as it is in keeping with the overall intent of the sign bylaw. The request is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands, and the request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. Staff is recommending approval of the sign variance application, subject to the attached conditions. Thank you and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon, for your presentation. Does the committee have any questions or concerns to staff? It appears there are no questions from the committee. Is the agent or applicant present to make a presentation or add any details of their request? I believe there are no applicants.
Through the chair, Randy Fitch was here.
Oh, I see him still, but his mic is muted.
You looking for me?
Randy Fitch, the applicant. He's here. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Mr. Fitz, I believe your mic is muted. Can you please unmute it?
Through the chair, to Randy, at the bottom of your screen, if you hover your, perfect.
How's that?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I have no questions.
You have nothing further to add?
No,
Okay.
nothing to add.
Are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application?
Through the chair, there are not.
Thank you, Alyssa. Are there any final questions or comments from the committee to staff or the agent or applicant?
Yes, through the chair to the applicant, just one question. The other sign, the portable one, the small one, is that going to remain also, or is that going to be moved out?
That will be removed.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? I will now turn it over to Member Emmett to make the motion.
Okay, where's the minute here? Program's all froze up. I'll move that the application SV 5-21-SL be approved. And I forget who
I'll just add as outlined in staff report CA 2174. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with member Emmett. Possibly member Emmett has lost his connection. Hamilton? Member Hamilton? Member Zuloff?
Yes.
Member Vamus?
Yes.
Member Smith?
yes,
Member Schmidt? Member Schmidt, your mic is muted. I'm not sure if we've lost those members. And Brown, yes.
Member Emmett here, I'm in favor, but there's a storm going through and rural people keep cutting in and out.
Yes, I believe so. I think it's hitting this area now too. And with that in mind, I will now introduce item 6.3, application A2821 RC. Oh, sorry, I forgot to ask to state that the motion was carried, the application has been approved. So now I will introduce item 6.3, application A2821 RC, and turn it over to staff for the presentation and the report and the recommendation.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair. Just checking, you can hear me okay? Thank you.
Yes, I can hear you fine.
Thanks very much. Okay. The subject lands are located on the east side of Bishopsgate Road within the former township of Burford. The subject lands currently have a frontage of approximately 79.1 meters and a depth of approximately 58 meters with a total area of approximately 0.4 hectares or 0.98 acres. The applicant is requesting relief from section 4.4 of the zoning bylaw to permit a 122.6 square meter addition to an existing 408.77 square meter accessory structure. The applicant is proposing to permit a maximum lot coverage for all accessory structures of 532 square meters, whereas 200 square meters is currently permitted. The applicant is also proposing a minimum rear yard setback for the accessory structure of 2.51 meters, whereas 3 meters is required. Staff have fielded one inquiry from a member of the public through circulation of the notices. Specifically, these concerns were related to grading and stormwater runoff in relation to the proposed rear yard setback reduction. I do note that in conversations with my colleagues in the building division and development engineering, there are no objections specifically related to the proposal. And it was noted that the applicant is required to submit an engineered grading plan as part of a complete building permit application, which is a standard condition and requirement for these types of additions. Staff is of the opinion that this proposal has merit as it meets the 4 tests for a minor variance and is therefore recommended that this application be approved. Thank you. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ryan, for the presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this application? It appears.
Sorry, I have one. Through the chair to Ryan. Has the construction already started on this property, or cement already been poured? So.
That's my understanding. Through you, Madam Chair, there has been a foundation poured, and I believe the applicant can elaborate, but I do understand that has been noted, and there has been the applicant has been notified that work shall stop until this application and the building permit has been issued.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Member Hamilton here. I think I finally got hooked up again. I apologize for previous. Through the chair to Ryan, you said that I seen there was no conditions on this application, but then you just made the comment that there would be a grading and drainage plan put when they get the building permit, correct? I was wondering if we should also add to that, that no business can be run out of this building at that time.
Madam Chair, I have no objections in that regard. The question about a condition, it's not a specific condition imposed on this variance because my colleagues in development engineering noted that it's a requirement of the building permit. So with or without a variance, being required, it's just sort of on a case-by-case basis. So they'll analyze whether or not we need an engineered plan. In this instance, they do need it in the submission of their building permit. But of course, you could add that condition as well, stipulating about running a business out of the subject lands.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. No, it's just a matter if we go to the next one, there is a number of conditions that have been put into it. So I'm just trying to get some consistency going through all the minor variances that are coming with or without conditions, just as long as they're consistent. So that's my question for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions to staff? Is the applicant or their agent present to make a presentation or add any details to their request?
I am present.
Please identify yourself.
Glenn Williamson.
Thank you. I will now turn it.
Okay, you cut out there, sorry.
I will now turn it over to you for your presentation.
I actually really have nothing to add, I don't believe.
Okay, so you don't have anything further. The staff report is okay. Does the committee have any questions or comments to the applicant?
Yes, through the chair to the applicant. On the diagram you submitted, you have the septic bed on the map, but where is the well for that property? It wasn't on the map.
The well for the property is in the backyard behind the house on the south end of the lot.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions to the applicant? It appears there are no more. Are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application?
Through the chair, there is no registered delegates for this application. There was a phone number. They're no longer here anymore, so we'll just continue on.
Okay, thank you. Are there any final questions or comments from the committee to staff and or the applicant? It appears there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Schmidt to make the motion. Member Schmidt, your mic is showing as muted. Have we lost Member Schmidt connection?
Member Emmett here, if his connection.
Okay. Your connection is very poor. Can Member Smith make the motion?
Sorry, I have to pass on to someone else for this one.
Pardon?
I have to pass it off to another member for this one, if I can.
Okay. Is Member Hamilton, does he have a solid connection?
I'm here. I don't know if it's solid.
Okay, can I?
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by members. Oh, wrong one. Sorry. Moved by myself, seconded by member Emmett. The application A2821-RC be approved as outlined in the staff's report CA-21-79.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett. I believe he's lost the, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Member Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Can I just clarify, are we voting to approve the motion with the added condition that no business can be run from the building?
yes,
Then yes.
thank you. Member Vamus,
No.
Member Smith,
No.
Member Schmidt,
Yes.
Member
that-
Brown. You said yes?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Member Brown, yes. I will call on staff because there were some interruptions to call on Alyssa to determine how many yeses and how many nos there were.
Through the chair, we have 5 yeses and 2 nos.
Thank you.
Carried.
The motion has carried. The application has been approved. Thank you. I will now introduce item 6.4, application A2621AW, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you through the chair. An application for a minor variance has been received from Pat Sheetley for the lands municipally known as 313 German School Road. The subject lands are irregular in shape and have a frontage along German School Road of approximately 53.7 meters and a total area of approximately 0.81 hectares. Based on aerial imagery in the site plan submitted with the application, it appears the subject lands are currently occupied by a single detached dwelling and 3 existing accessory structures, being a shed, a detached garage, and a covered carport with a total accessory area of approximately 125.5 square meters. In regards to the proposal, the applicant is requesting relief in regards to maximum accessory structure area for residential zones. The applicant is proposing a maximum accessory structure area of 265 square meters, whereas a maximum of 140 square meters is permitted. And then in regards to the official plan, the subject lands are designated as suburban residential, with the suburban residential designation contemplating for residential development and the associated accessory structures. In regards to the zoning bylaw, the subject lands are zoned as suburban residential, which permits residential uses and accessory structures. The variance is being sought to facilitate the construction of an additional detached garage for the purpose of storing collector cars. And then through public circulation, no comments were received. And then in regards to my recommendation, I'm recommending approval of the application, and I can answer any questions the committee members may have.
Thank you, Amanda, for your presentation. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff? It appears there are none. Is the agent or is the applicant or their agent present to add any further details or make a presentation?
Through the chair, I believe the applicant is here, but he's having some internet connections as well. So I'm not sure if Pat is still on the line.
I'm still here if you can hear me.
I can hear you with difficulty because there's a terrific storm passing over me now.
Oh, no problem. I don't have anything further to add. Amanda seemed to sum up everything according to how I would like it presented. But I can answer any questions.
Thank you. I'll ask the committee, are there any questions or comments to the applicant? It appears there are none. I'll ask, are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application? It appears there are none. So I will ask the committee, are there any final questions or comments to staff or the applicant? It appears there are none. I will now turn it over to Member Smith for the motion.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Schmidt, the application A2621AW be approved as outlined in staff report CA 2175.
Thank you, Member Smith. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith, Schmidt, I'm not sure if we still have Member Schmidt online. Brown, yes. It appears the motion has carried. The application has been approved. Thank you. I will now introduce item 6.5 on our agenda, A2521DN, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and the recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a minor variance application for 137 Highway 53 in Burford, and the applicant representing the owners is with us this evening, Mr. Kovacs, and staff are recommending approval of this minor variance application. So the subject lands are located west of Middletown Line Road, east of the hamlet village of Cathcart, on the south side of Highway 53. The subject lands outlined in red have a total frontage of 27 meters, a depth of approximately 50 meters, and a total area of 0.14 hectares or 0.34 acres. The official plan land use designation is agricultural towards the front, and some natural heritage identified in green towards the rear. And this is consistent with the zoning as well, agricultural in white towards the front and green natural heritage. The green or the natural heritage area identifies the GRCA regulation limit. The green area reflects the estimated floodplain area. The proposal, this is a minor variance application seeking relief from the zoning bylaw to permit an interior side yard setback to the proposed attached garage of 0.9 meters, where a minimum of 4 meters is required. So you can see the proposed site plan on the screen. We have the existing dwelling outlined in a solid dash or a solid black line. There's an existing carport that's to be removed. That's in the dash line. And the proposed addition is identified in red. So just a few things to note there. The staff report did make mention of comments from our engineering department who were requesting that a survey be provided as a condition of this application, or of the approval of this application. And I'll just note that I had followed up with the applicant, and they did provide a historical site plan or survey that was forming the base of their proposed site plan. So their dimensions were taken from an old survey, and that old survey did show the existing dwelling footprint as well as the setbacks to that existing carport. So I did forward that off to our engineering staff, who confirmed that that was satisfying their comments, and so we can remove that condition. And so the staff recommendation, as I'll present it, does not or no longer includes that as a condition. And as I mentioned, the portion of the rear of the property is within the GRCA regulation limit because of that estimated floodplain area, and there were no concerns with the proposal. And I'll also note that a grading plan will be required to be provided at the time of the building permit. So the review of this minor variance application has had regard for and satisfies the 4 tests as set out in section 45 of the Planning Act. And staff have reviewed the comments received as part of the technical circulation. I will note that no public comments have been received as part of the public circulation. I did make mention of the removal of the condition that is originally noted in the staff report. And it is my professional recommendation that minor variance application A2521DN be approved. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dan. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff?
Member Hamilton here, through the chair to staff. Dan, I didn't, maybe it never got printed off. I didn't see the list of conditions that were with this application, or was it not? And you've just commented on the survey and the grading and drainage one, as well as there was the building and wanted a detailed review of the construction drawings prior to the building permit. So.
Yep, through Mr. Chair, or through Madam Chair, to Member Hamilton, the condition was listed under the recommendation. So it was a kind of a one-liner under the recommendation in the staff report.
Okay, no, that's fine then, Dan. It's just a matter, I'm just trying to understand the consistency here. It seems to bounce from application to application, so that's all. All right, thank you.
Any further questions from the committee?
Member Zuloff, through the chair to staff. Just want to confirm, I could be wrong about this, but I thought that building into the natural heritage zone required written authorization from the Conservation Authority, and I can see the GRCA has no objection, so I'm assuming you received that, but can I just clarify that you did?
Through Madam Chair, yes, that is correct. We have received written comments from the GRCA with identifying no concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Member Zuloff. Are there any further questions from the committee to staff? I'll ask Dan. I'm just confirming. So there are no conditions with this application now.
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. The condition has technically been satisfied.
Okay, thank you. I'll now ask, is the agent or is the applicant or their agent present to make a presentation or add any further details to the staff report?
Hello, this is Eric Kovacs. I am present. However, I have nothing to add as Dan did a good job with his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Kovacs. I will ask, are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application? I don't believe there are any. I'll ask, are there any final questions or comments to the staff or the applicant? It appears there are none, so I will turn it over to Member Vamus to provide the motion.
Yes, thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Emmett that application A25-21-DN be approved as outlined in staff report CA-21-71.
Thank you, Member Vamus. Members, please, I'll now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton?
Yes.
Zuloff?
Yes.
Vamus?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Schmidt? I think we have lost member Schmidt. Brown, yes. The motion has carried. The application has been approved. I will now move on to item 6.6 on our agenda. And it is application A2321 SL, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation. Member Vamus has declared a conflict of interest for this application.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a minor variance for lands located between Cleaver Road and Bishopsgate Road. There is no civic address associated. They can also be identified with property rule number 2920-004-020-0222 within the former township of Brantford. The minor variance is to request a minimum frontage of 16.3 meters, whereas a minimum lot frontage of 20 meters is required for an existing lot of record in an agricultural zone. The applicant is requesting relief of 3.7 meters. The subject lands are a former railway line stretching from Cleaver Road on the east to Bishopsgate Road on the west. To the north of the subject property, there are agricultural lands. To the east of the subject property is a single detached dwelling and buildings associated with agricultural uses. To the south of the subject property are agricultural lands, the Keir Road, and single detached dwellings and buildings associated with agricultural uses. And to the east of the subject property, there are agricultural lands and related uses. The application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. The subject lands are designated as agriculture within the County of Brant official plan, and a portion on the west side is designated as employment. The portion subject to the minor variance is not within the employment designation. The minor variance is in conformity with the County of Brant official plan for the following reasons. The agricultural designation allows for the proposed future residential use. No new residential lot is being created. The lands are an existing lot of record, and the lands will require private servicing. These subject lands are zoned as agriculture within the County of Brant zoning bylaw. The application is seeking relief from section 4.28.1b in order to recognize an existing deficiency in lot frontage for an existing lot of record in order to facilitate the ability to obtain a building permit in future. The proposal is considered to be in keeping with the intent of the County of Brant zoning bylaw 6116, as all other criteria has been met. Public comments were received from 7 Cleaver Road, 5 Cleaver Road, and 14 DeKeer Road at the time of writing the report. A summary of these comments were detailed in the report. I am supportive of the minor variance application as it is consistent with the provincial policy statement, conforms to the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and meets the 4 tests as established by section 45(1) of the Planning Act. The proposal is considered to be minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the development of the subject lands. The request is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw and official plan. I'm recommending approval of the minor variance application, subject to the attached conditions. I would like to add the following condition: that the applicant receive a letter from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks, and, if required, complete any requirements that relate to a record of site condition or other requirements related to obtaining a building permit. I would like to note that a grading plan will be required prior to the approval of a building permit. Thank you, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Shannon. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this application?
Member Hamilton here, through the chair to staff. Just wanting to understand, this is a fairly long or wide, lots of length to it, probably over 1 kilometer. Agriculture is on both sides of the railway, the old railway track. Was there any right of ways from any farmers that are farming on both sides of the road, or was it it's all been negated when the lot was purchased from the railway?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Hamilton, I'm not aware of any easements or right-of-ways on the subject property.
Okay, I just know from any time I went on a rail trail or anything else, there always seems to be things for that, crossings at that. So I was just curious on that. Maybe I'll ask the applicant at a later date if he's aware of anything on there as well.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. Are there any further questions from the committee to staff?
Member Emmett here, just a general question. If we give the, agree to this minor variance of the narrow lot, will that still allow enough of a area for a house to be built without having a minor variance, side variance with one side of the fence or the other?
Thank you, Member Emma. Is staff online to respond?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Emmett. If the building envelope might be slightly smaller, but there have been no proposal for development at the moment, but on the application, there were preliminary information provided for the proposed dwelling, and it appears that they're able to meet all of the required setbacks.
All right, it's just we've had a few minor variants with side yards. I just wanted to make sure we weren't getting a lot that didn't conform to without having to get a minor variance for everything.
Thank you, Member Emmett. Are there any further questions from the committee to staff?
Member Hamilton, a follow-up to Member Emmett's question there. I know it's a 4-meter side allowance, but it's on both sides of the track, so that's 25 feet. And you only have 57, so that means the house at its max would only be about 28 feet wide, unless it goes the other way. And the secondary thing I have is, how do you set up a septic system on a railway track that's full of ballast and gravel and everything else if it goes forward? Has that been discussed?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Hamilton. No, this has not been discussed yet, as there's no development being proposed at the moment. This is purely to recognize an existing deficiency. But at the time that this development will be proposed, we can discuss then.
Thank you. I have an additional question through the chair to the staff. Is there been any indication where this potential building may be put? Is it going to be closer to Cleaver or closer to Bishopsgate, or is it going to be stuck in the middle of the lot?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Member Hamilton. Based off a preliminary discussion and items noted in the application, it appears it'll be closer to Cleaver Road, and they're able to meet the street setback of 10 meters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee? I have a question to staff. When these old railways were abandoned, I thought agreements existed at the time, and I could be wrong, where those lines did have to merge with the agricultural lands they were running through. So is that not the case here? The lot was actually, this existing lot, as you're referring to it, was actually purchased separately, and there was never merging on either side with the other lands?
Through you, Madam Chair, maybe the applicant is able to answer this, but I am not aware of any sort of agreement.
So you can't see any kind of history on it when it was abandoned? It was standalone. Based on the history you are seeing, it was standalone for the past many years.
Through you, Madam Chair, I don't really have any history on this property.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had was, since there is access from both Bishopsgate and Cleaver, and it appears from your previous comment to Member Hamilton that there could be access for the building from Cleaver, is there a potential now that it could actually be severed approximately midway so that you will have two lots in the future, one gaining access from Cleaver and one from Bishopsgate?
Through you, Madam Chair, no, based on the zoning, based on the ag zoning, a severance would not be supported. It wouldn't meet the minimum lot area requirements.
I thought, or maybe I misunderstood, I thought this covered an area of close to 12 acres. Did I misinterpret that?
In an ag zone, the minimum lot area required for a severance is 40 hectares or approximately 100 acres.
Okay, so it's because it's agriculture. Okay, so that's why I was being confused on that. Okay, thank you. I will now ask, is the applicant or their agent present? I'm assuming there are no further comments or questions from the committee. It appears there aren't. So I will ask the applicant or their agent to make their presentation or add any details of their own to the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mary Elder, agent for Frank Cortez. And I will note that Frank is in attendance too, so if there are some details that we need to ask him, we can do that later. I am aware that railway lines, when they are no longer needed at a higher level, they're offered first of all from that to the province or to the municipalities. And then if they are not wanting it, then it becomes up for sale. So that's the history I know on a broad level. As far as this specific lot, I am not aware of the details on how it was sold to Mr. Cortez. Just to give you a bit of background on that. The orientation for the house will be long and narrow. It won't be wide so that all the zoning setbacks can be met. It will also be set back further from the road so that it is on higher ground. So those are a couple of things of the questions you've been asking. And quite correctly, when a house is being built, septic system will have to be installed and an installer will have to design one that will address the soil conditions, whatever's there, and how they can make that work. So those are just from some of your questions. The application really is just for the minor variance for the frontage, so that in the future there could be a home built, but there's no plans for that at this point. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you've got any questions, I'll certainly be pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elder. I will ask the committee, are there any questions or comments to Ms. Elder or Mr. Cortez?
Member Hamilton here, through the chair to the applicant or the advisor. Just wanting to understand from a drainage perspective, as you know, when they build a railway, it has deep ditches on both sides. And therefore, if they go to fill in to make it a decent building site, what will happen to the drainage on both sides? And will that interfere with any of the agricultural lands that in the close proximity of the house that may be built in the future?
I'm going to pass it to Frank if he would, please.
Yes, the proposed building would be built where the land is a little higher, west of Cleaver Road. And it's fairly level there, so there wouldn't be any fill put onto the neighboring farmland. As far as purchase of the railway, it goes through my property at 330 Bishopsgate Road. I have property on both sides, and that's why I purchased it. And in the past, I have asked the owners at the basket towards the east if they want to buy it, but they buy their part, but they didn't want to buy it. And so I was stuck with the whole line, and that's where I sit. And I allow the millers there to use to cross my property there for irrigation. I have no problem with that. I guess that's, if there's any more questions, you can ask me. Thanks.
Member Zuloff, through the chair to the applicant, I just ask you, you'd mentioned that you own property on both sides of the land. Do you know whether or not you may have merged in title then with the property? Are you actually adjacent with it?
The former railway property goes right through my property on 330. It's I have property on both sides, and I never asked to merge. I asked to widen it, but I never asked to merge. Actually, I never applied to widen it, but I never asked to merge it. The reason I bought it is to prevent ATVs and other trespassers from going through. That's the first reason. That's why I bought it, and now I'm applying for a minor variance. And like I said, I allowed the neighbors to cross there with their irrigation equipment. I have no problem with that. Thank you.
Well, what I mean is that legally, if you have identical ownership with adjacent parcels of land, except for some exceptions, like there are whole lots and subdivision plans, etc., then even if there's separate parcels, title merges, you can't deal with one parcel separately unless you get a severance of them. I'm just wondering if you've looked into that at all. You're confident that they haven't merged if you own adjacent properties like that with the same ownership.
If I could, Madam Chair, I believe Frank is talking about lands to the west of Bishopsgate, not adjacent.
Okay, so the lands he owns are not actually touching the land that we're dealing with right now.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Basically, that was my question too, because if Mr. Cortez is indicating he owns land on both sides, that is my question. How can we basically be creating a lot right through the middle of agricultural land? So it doesn't really identify it in the pictures and diagrams, but you can confirm, Ms. Elder, that he does not own land right next to it.
That's correct.
Okay.
MJ, sorry, just to jump in through the chair, should the committee see fit, we can add a condition that requires the applicant to provide some sort of documentation, whether it be a PIN or a survey of some sort of document just confirming that this is a separate parcel and hasn't merged with any abutting parcels.
I think that would be an excellent idea. I don't know.
Chair, sorry, Member Smith here. Can that condition read that we get confirmation from a lawyer, please, to confirm that it's a legal lot of record?
Through the chair, if that's what the committee deems appropriate, the wording can be read that way.
Yes, please, and
Thank
thank you. Are there any further questions or comments from the committee?
Just Member Emmett here. Now,
Yes.
if we accept this application, we'll be giving a narrow frontage on two roads, am I right? This isn't to deal with just so far off of Cleaver Road and then the rest stays the way it is, am I right? So there's nothing down the road that we've all traveled down in our many years that things change. So there's no intent today to put a house at Bishopsgate, but there could be in 15 years from now. So anyway, I'd see more benefit to it if it was just partway off of Cleaver Road and not the full mile long. So anyway, I'll leave that up to the rest of you to discuss.
Thank you, Member Emmett. That was one of my concerns as well. And that is where I'm not sure, since it does stretch between Cleaver and Bishopsgate. Are they considered actual road and like entrances from the road? Maybe staff can speak to that.
Through you, Madam Chair, if they needed an entrance to the property, they would have to apply for an entrance permit. It'd be a separate application. It could be applied for at the time of the building permit as well.
So right now, it is not considered a legal entrance from either or both roads?
From my understanding, not at this moment. I don't know if the applicant or the agent can speak more to that.
Yes, I'd like some information on that, please.
Through the chair, I'm aware that there is a culvert at Cleaver. And so that does provide access now, but whether or not there is a permit that's been issued, that would be Frank would have to tell you that.
Mr. Cortez, could you speak to that question?
Yes, I never applied for a permit for entry permit. At this point, I haven't applied. And on Bishopsgate Road, would never plan to build a house there. It's zoned employment, and because of that, I wouldn't recommend a residential. It's already zoned or going to be. It's under employment, so it wouldn't. Sometime in the future, whenever they needed it for employment, it would just be absorbed as employment on Bishopsgate Road.
Madam Chair, if I might add a little something to this.
Member Hamilton here, just for clarification, I know it looks blue on the one, but if it's all agricultural all the way through, what is the actual zoning of this strip of railway track?
Can I have staff respond to that? That was a question I had too. What is the zoning if it is agriculture and now we're being told it's employment on the one end?
Through you, Madam Chair, the entire lot is zoned as agriculture. I think the employment, they're referring to the land use designation that's on the western portion, which is different from the zoning.
Yes, it's just designated at this point. Then I will ask Ms. Elder if she could respond.
So there's been some questions about the frontage and how could you get a building permit on either end? Well, you can't create a new lot in the agricultural area. So with that designation agriculture, there's no way to create a new one, to cut this in half. The other thing is this minor variance is on the Cleaver Street end. Cleaver Road end, and there's a specific width to that, and there's a specific relief that's been requested. So from 20 meters to relief 3.7. So it ties it very much to Cleaver Road only. You couldn't do anything at the other end because it's not the right relief. It's not the right width. So I just wanted to bring that clarification to your discussions. Thank you.
I would only comment that I don't see the application only referring to a specific lot frontage on Cleaver. My interpretation was the variance would apply the whole length of the property. Perhaps staff can speak to that as well.
Through you, Madam Chair, in my report, I note that the land subject to the minor variance are the portion on the east side of Cleaver Road, and that the portion on Bishopsgate Road where it's designated employment is not subject to the minor variance.
Okay, thank you. I guess I missed that because I'm just reading the summary and recommendation, and I don't really see that it refers to.
Through you, Madam Chair, in the decision, we can always provide specific wording for frontage along Cleaver Road.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea as well, too. I'll ask now, are there any questions to the applicant from the committee at this point?
Member Zuloff, chair to the applicant. I'd like to follow up with Member Hamilton's question to staff before about a potential right-of-way. I noticed looking at Google Maps, it looks like that strip is quite traveled. I'd be mistaken there. And the applicant did mention agricultural equipment using it. Wondering, if you're aware of a right-of-way on the property or how confident you are that there's not, bearing in mind that the fact that a right-of-way is not registered doesn't mean it doesn't legally exist.
Applicant here, there's a right-of-way what we're using to cross the former railway from one side of the property to the other. But there was no formal application for that, what we cross. And as far as crossing for the millers for the irrigation, I don't have any formal agreement there, but I had no problem with them crossing there with their irrigation equipment.
So the proposed house wouldn't be built, wouldn't affect that area that's being used as a right-of-way then? Is that correct?
That's right. That's correct. The proposed house or a house there wouldn't affect the right-of-way of the irrigation equipment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee to the applicant and agent? It appears there are none. I believe there are some public delegations registered to speak to this application. So I would ask that you state your name and address for the record.
Bill Miller, 14 Decatur Road.
Thank you. Please go ahead with your presentation and I will ask staff to take time of it.
Okay. Well, in addition to the information that has already been submitted by Alan Miller at 7 Cleaver Road and the Coopers at 5 Cleaver Road, the culvert underneath the area is an agreement that's been in place since at least 1963, which has been used for irrigation access, and we certainly can't have that disrupted. To clarify, there is a right-of-way approximately 300 meters from the property of 14 Decatur Road to going east to Cleaver Road. That hasn't been used in years because we haven't any need to go across there, but there was a right-of-way that we did pay rent to the railroad for too. Furthermore, the area in question is a common flood area, which I've gone into detail with in my original submission. So that really needs to have some attention paid to it because that area, it's a nightmare. It's also a wind tunnel. It gets really dusty through there as well. So potentially to make it a domestic dwelling, it's not going to be a comfortable place to live by any and all means. You know, that land was all agricultural land before the railway came through in the original deeds of the Crown. Now that that land is been vacant for some time, you know, it's still land that should be repurposed for agricultural purposes. And in all due respect to Mr. Cortez, I've never met the man. I've never spoken to him, nor do my parents have any record of such to discuss, you know, a possible merger of the land or purchase thereof, or anything like that, in order that we could return it to agricultural land. I do have one question concerning the definition of vacant land. There is a comment made that the land is vacant but is used for agricultural purposes. And I have a definition of that and exactly what that is meant, and that is in the documentation submitted by Mary Elder.
Do you have further presentation and
other than I'm assuming that the committee has respectfully had the opportunity to review all submissions supported by residences or submitted by all the residences here, I have nothing else at this time.
Thank you. Yes, we have had the time to review all the submissions. I would ask that Ms. Elder address your question.
the question of what the definition of vacant land is. It's land that does not have any buildings on it. Basically what I would say. I don't have the zoning bylaw in front of me to check to see if there's a definition in the Brant County zoning bylaw.
So vacant land meaning no buildings, no services, is that correct? And can we do assume that?
Through the chair, that's what I would agree to, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public delegations that are registered to speak to this application? Alyssa, I thought there was another person, or perhaps the connection has been broken off.
Through the chair, Phil was the only one that I spoke to that said he wanted to present. We do have Sandra here.
Yes, that was the name.
Yes, I'm here and I'm actually sitting with Philip. So I've heard everything and I'm in agreement with the presentation that he made. I don't have anything to add at this point.
Thank you. Are there any, I will ask the members now, are there any final questions or comments to staff or the applicant with their agent? It appears there are none. I will now turn it over to Member Hamilton to provide the motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that application A23-21-SL.
I don't think we're hearing all the motion. Can you hear me, Member Hamilton? I will call upon Member Smith to complete the motion.
I apologize. I'll have to pass this one off again. If we can get another member to be the seconder, I apologize.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask Member Emmett. Can you provide the motion?
Moved by myself, seconded by members. Did Member Smith say she would or wouldn't?
I believe she said she wouldn't. She was
Okay.
requesting. So is there a,
Seeking a second.
I'll ask, is there a seconder in the committee?
Through the chair, I know that Member Hamilton is back if he is able to do the motion.
Member Hamilton?
Yes, you've got me now. Okay, sorry about that. It's raining outside here and carrying on. Moved by myself,
Yes.
seconded by Member Smith.
Member Smith has indicated she will not second this. And also, please refer somehow to there are conditions that the committee has discussed to add.
Oh, okay. Well, it's moved by myself and therefore I need to have a seconder. So I will leave it for somebody to second it, that the application A23-21SL be approved as outlined by the staff report C21 with the additional conditions that were discussed at the meeting.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
I'd second that if there was a limit on the length that we are going off Cleaver to the west. I don't think it needs to be the full mile long, or kilometer and a half or whatever it is. I just see enough for a house at the west end.
I believe that that was addressed as Shannon indicated, the minor variance only pertains to the Cleaver end?
I want clarification of that it only goes so far from Cleaver west, not the full length. I want to see it on paper. I don't see a westerly length, west-east length mentioned in the report. It looks to me like the full length of the report.
Then can we impose that as an additional condition?
That would be my wish.
Through the chair, I have noted in the minutes that Shannon was going to add in the condition to the decision that the minor variance portion be on the east side to Cleaver Road only.
Okay.
Can I add how far from Cleaver? Are you looking 5 meters? I'm just throwing a figure out. I think we need a specific figure wrote down.
We can put that in the motion.
That would be my wish.
Are you providing the specific distance then, Member Emmett?
300 meters, does that work?
Through the chair, just Member Smith here, even though I'm not seconding the application, may I suggest that it be a condition that the dwelling be located no further than so far from Cleaver Road? That way we make sure it's stuck on that one side. Just make sure it's a condition.
I'm not sure we can put a condition for a dwelling when it's only a minor variance for the actual lot size at this point.
I'm concerned that if you put it in as a motion, it's a little bit more strict if you put something in as a condition. So I don't know if staff has a recommendation for that wording.
Yes, I will ask staff.
Thank you through the chair. If the committee deems it appropriate, we can include a condition of the minor variance that ensures that the proposed dwelling be located on the Cleaver side of the property with the Cleaver frontage that requires the variance being the primary entrance into the residential dwelling and not use the Bishop Gates end. In regards to the, for lack of a better term, the depth of how long that variance would apply for, I'm not sure. Again, it's up to the committee, but I'm not sure if that additional depth is required, because as long as the dwelling is, say the variance for the frontage is approved and they're meeting all the other provisions of the zoning bylaw in terms of minimum setbacks and things like that, that's what would dictate the location of the dwelling. But if the committee sees fit to include a number in regards to the depth and essentially create a building envelope for the dwelling, if the committee deems it appropriate, they can include a condition.
And approximately how long? I thought I heard it was approximately 1 kilometer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shannon, we need to confirm the approximate size of the parcel just because I don't have that information in front of me, but we can, if the committee deems it appropriate, we can include a condition that dictates where the dwelling be located, whether it be through a specific number or creating like a building envelope. And it looks like Member Smith actually has a comment.
Yes. Sorry, through the chair to the committee. Just with my experience in the past, I have provided an area on a map, and I have said that the minor variance only applies to that particular area. Don't know if that's an option that we can do for this to make it a little bit easier, but staff obviously would have to determine the area on it.
Thank you, through the chair. That's more or less what I was implying when I was mentioning creating that like building envelope. So if the committee deems it appropriate, they can determine a number, or they could make a motion to defer this application, and we can kind of have some additional discussions on what that building envelope would be. And then we can bring that application forward, or through this meeting, the committee can kind of determine a depth. I believe Member Emmett had mentioned, had a suggestion, but I'll leave it into the hands of the committee.
I would only suggest that I'm thinking deferral would be good because there have been many questions raised, like potential mergers, the right-of-ways that need to be checked into. We're adding conditions and adding conditions sort of on the fly without really having the exact wording. So I would ask, is there a member of the committee that is willing to put forth a motion to defer this application until we have more concise conditions and research done on potential mergers, right-of-ways, things like that?
Member Hamilton here. I will retract my initial motion, and I would move that we put this application up for deferral until some of these questions be answered as well as written on paper so we know exactly what we're agreeing and voting on.
Thank you, Member Hamilton. Do we have a second for this motion to defer?
Member Zuloff, I'll second that motion.
Member Zuloff, a second. I will now call the vote. So please indicate, members, if you are in favor of the motion to defer, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton.
Yes.
Zuloff.
Yes.
Vamus. Vamus.
He
had the conflict. Sorry. Sorry. We've been on it so long, I forgot. Member Smith.
Yes.
Schmidt. I believe we do not have Member Schmidt present. And Brown, yes. The motion has carried to defer this application to a future meeting so that we can have more concrete conditions as well as further research into potential mergers and rights of way. Thank you. And with that, I will now move on to introduce item 6.7 on our agenda, application B5121RC, and turn it over to staff for the presentation of the report and recommendation.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Can you see my screen here? Just double checking. Thank you.
Yes, I can see it.
The subject lands are located on the north side of Norwich Road, south of 13th Concession Road, and east of Baseline Road in the township of Norwich in Oxford County. The applicant is seeking to sever an area of approximately 47.8 hectares, 118 acres, to facilitate a proposed farm split within the county of Brant. Subject lands were previously two separate farm parcels, which were merged inadvertently when the landowner acquired an unopened split road allowance from both the county of Brant and Oxford County. The retained lands are expected to have an area of approximately 38.1 hectares and will continue to be farmed. It is also noted that Oxford County planning staff have reviewed this application as it pertains to the retained lands in Oxford County and have no objections. Staff is of the opinion that proposed consent meets the criteria of the Planning Act, the provisions of the provincial policy statement, conforms to the County of Brant official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw, and therefore is recommending approval of this application subject to the attached conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Does the committee have any questions or comments to staff on this application? It appears there are none. Is the agent for this application present to make a presentation or add any details to the staff report?
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Steve Cornwell. I'm the planner for the owner, and I am available to answer questions. I'm in agreement with the staff report, although we do have one request for the committee to consider. we would like to ask that condition 2 be removed prior to committee considering approval for this. Condition 2 is, I believe, the typical language used for rural severances in terms of the provision of a draft reference plan. However, in this case, because we're dealing with essentially the reestablishment of original survey lots, we're expecting that the Land Registry Office won't actually require a draft reference plan for this application. And so we're hoping the committee would rather not make it a condition. The condition also specifies existing well and septic system on the severed lot, and neither of those things are present on the severed lot at this time. Other than that request, we're quite happy with the planner's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Cornwell. Do any members of the committee have any comments or questions to the applicant on this matter? It appears there are none. Are there any public delegations registered to speak to this application? I don't believe there are any. I'll ask, are there any final questions to from the members to staff or the agent?
Member Zuloff, the chair to the applicant. Can I just verify, what is the legal description going to be then of the severed parcel if there's going to be no reference plan?
The severance follows the original survey lot boundary, which is also the boundary between the counties. So we're expecting that they'll be able to rely on the meets and bounds survey understanding of those lots. This was at least how it was described to me by our land surveyor. So I hope I don't have any of that wrong, but if there's another reason that staff are requiring a draft reference plan for this severance, I'm happy to hear it.
Madam Chair, if I may.
The proposed civil parcel, was that previously a separate parcel then and just merged with the retained one at some point? Now we're just re-severing it, or how's that?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was in the 90s that these parcels were purchased by the owner. And when the Brant County parcel was purchased, the selling farmer wanted to retain the house on a separate lot. And so a severance was approved at that time to sever a rural residence from the property. And then that preceded the properties both coming into the hands of the owners and merging on title. So the severance proposed before you would just recreate or resever those two lots into the condition they were in the 90s.
Okay, not 100% confident the land registry office will accept that, but the meets and bounds. But I mean, I suppose ultimately, if that's the case, you just will have to get a survey because you won't be able to do the severance otherwise.
Exactly.
I'll ask staff's comment on the removal of condition 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With respect to the proposal to modify, I'll provide my recommendation if I may. We'll put in, I would recommend to add that the applicant provide a copy of a draft reference plan if required by the Land Registry Office. And we can also remove the part regarding the inclusion of existing well and septic. And that obviously would leave leave the responsibility of the applicant's lawyer to demonstrate that the transfer can be adequately accomplished without a new reference plan. If that makes sense.
Does that answer your question, Member Zuloff?
Yep, that's satisfactory to me.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions from the committee? It appears there are none, so I will now turn it over to Member Zuloff for the motion.
Okay, just a second here. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Vamus that application B5121RC be approved as outlined in staff report CA 2169.
Thank you, Member Zuloff. I will now call the vote. Members, please indicate if you are in favor of the motion, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Schmidt. I don't think he has regained connection. Member Brown, yes. The motion is carried. The application has been approved. The next meeting is expected to be November 18th, 2021. And we will now move to adjournment. May I please get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair. Moved by myself and seconded by Member Smith that the meeting of October 21st, 2021 be adjourned.
All those in favor, please indicate when I call your name, starting with Member Emmett.
Yes.
Hamilton,
Yes.
Zuloff,
Yes.
Vamus,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Brown, yes. I now declare